welcome to Books and Bubbly. This is the playlist where I get all bubbly and talk about books that I love while drinking something bubbly. And today we're going to be covering The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. So let's see what we're getting ourselves into with the back cover copy, which is quite short. Every morning, Melanie waits in her cell to be collected for class. When they come for her, Sergeant Parks keeps his gun pointing at her while two of his people strap her into the wheelchair. She thinks they don't like her. She jokes that she won't bite, but they don't laugh. So obviously there are going to be spoilers in this because I can't really talk about this book without giving the ending away, but seeing as it came out in 2014 and there's a Netflix movie about it, I don't feel like I'm giving too much away if I tell you that this is a zombie book. And what I did really like about the book is the twist on zombies. I mean, essentially you have a zombie outbreak, but children growing up with it who are both zombies, but still partly human. So, tabbed a few things here. So, on page 12, so chapter 2, just talking about them. So, their teacher, Miss Justineau, is reading them Winnie the Pooh. And Sergeant's voice breaks out with, "What the hell is this?" Miss Justineau stops and looks around. "I'm reading the children a story, Sergeant Parks," she says. "I can see that," Sergeant's voice says. "I thought the idea was to put them through their paces, not give them a cabaret." Miss Justineau tenses. "If you don't know her as well as Melanie knows her, and if you didn't watch her as closely as Melanie watches her, you'd most likely miss it. It's gone again really quickly, and her voice when she speaks sounds just the same as it always does, not angry at all." "That's exactly what we're doing," she says. "It's important to see how they process information. But there has to be input so there can be output." "Input?" Sergeant repeats. "You mean facts?" "No, not just facts. Ideas." "Oh yeah, plenty of world-class ideas in the Winnie the Pooh." Sergeant is using sarcasm. Melanie knows how sarcasm works. You say the opposite of what you really mean. "Seriously, you're wasting your time. You want to tell them stories? Tell them about Jack the Ripper and John Wayne Gacy." "They're children," Miss Justineau points out. "No." "Psychologically speaking, yes, they're children." "Well then, fuck psychology," Sergeant says, sounding kind of angry now. What you said right there. That's why you don't want to read them Winnie the Pooh. You carry on that way, you'll start thinking of them as real kids, and then you'll slip up, and maybe you'll untie one of them because he needs a cuddle or something. I don't need to tell you what happens after that." Sergeant comes to the front of the room, at the front of the class, then, and he does something really horrible. He rolls up his sleeve, all the way to the elbow, and he holds his bare forearm in front of Kenny's face. Right in front of Kenny, just an inch or so away from him. Nothing happens at first, but then Sergeant spits on his hand and rubs on his forearm, like he's wiping something away. "Don't," says Miss Justineau. "Don't do that to him." But Sergeant doesn't answer her or look at her. Melanie sits 2 rows behind Kenny, and 2 rows over, so she can see the whole thing. Kenny goes really stiff, and then his mouth gapes wide, and he starts to snap at Sergeant's arm, which of course he can't reach, and drool starts to drip down from the corner of his mouth. But not much of it, because nobody ever gives the children anything to drink, so it's thick, half solid, and it hangs there at the end of Kenny's chin, wobbling, while Kenny grunts and snaps at Sergeant's arm. It makes kind of a moaning, whimpering sound. And as bad as that is, it gets worse, because the kids on either side of Kenny start doing it too, as though it's something they've caught from Kenny, and the kids right behind twitch and shake as though someone is poking them really hard in the stomach. "You see," Sergeant says, and he turns to look at Miss Justineau's face to make sure she gets his point. And then there's also page 114. So this is when Melanie is breaking out of the camp or facility that she's held at. And someone's about to attack Miss Justineau, so Melanie comes in and saves her. The man's scream is a scary sound, shrill and wobbly. Melanie doesn't like it at all, but oh, she likes the taste. Likes the way his open thigh becomes a fountain, as though raw meat was a magic garden, a hidden landscape that she never really glimpsed until now. It's too much, finally. Her stomach and her mind aren't big enough. The whole world isn't big enough. Numbed with delight, with repletion that melts her muscles and her thoughts, she doesn't resist this time when hands pluck her loose and lift her up. Kind of talking about Melanie, I thought she was a really interesting main character, or one of the main characters that we follow. For a 10-year-old, she's very bright, she's curious, and a lively girl. A little funny given, again, that she's technically undead. She's a zombie. Her mind has been taken over by the fungus that caused the zombie outbreak in the first place. But I had another tab in here just about Melanie. So page 5, when we don't really understand what's going on yet, because the reveal that they're zombies takes quite a while. Like, you're at first just kind of reading it, figuring out like what's going on. And I think that does play into why the back cover copy is so short, so that it is a surprise when you get there. But page 5, after Sargent says transit, Melanie gets dressed quickly in the white shift that hangs on the hook next to her door. A pair of white trousers from the receptacle on the wall, and the white pumps lined up under her bed. Then she sits down in the wheelchair at the foot of her bed, like she's been taught to do. She puts her hands on the arms of the chair and her feet on the footrests. She closes her eyes and waits. She counts while she waits. The highest she's ever had to count is 2,526. The lowest is 1,901. When the key turns in the door, she stops counting and opens her eyes. Sargent comes in with his gun and points it at her. Then 2 of Sargent's people come in and tighten and buckle the straps of the chair around Melanie's wrists and ankles. There's also a strap for her neck. They tighten that one last of all, when her hands and feet are fastened all the way up. And they always do it from behind. The strap is designed so that they never have to put their hands in front of Melanie's face. Melanie sometimes says, "I won't bite." She says it as a joke, but Sargent's people never laugh. Sargent did once, the first time she said it, but it was a nasty laugh. And then he said, "Like we'd ever give you the chance, Sugar Plum." So again, she's bright. She doesn't understand what's going on, so she can't understand why that joke is so not funny to Sargent and his people. But she's definitely a unique character to follow as she clings to her human traits, but is still a zombie. It really puts the question of nature versus nurture at the forefront of the story. Are we destined to be what we were born as, or can we kind of choose who we want to be? Can that be nurtured out of us? Essentially, what does it mean to be human? The beautiful and the ugly, our need for acceptance and understanding, our desire to simply be loved, or to simply just be and exist. It was an unexpected story and went places that really make you think, because it's so easy to say with like zombies, like just kill it with fire. But what if the zombies still have humanity? What if there's still a part of them that can be saved? What if this is just meant to be the next evolution of what we are? The story was very character-driven, which isn't to say there wasn't action, because there definitely is, but the story is more an opportunity to be introspective, to wonder about ourselves and how we function in society. I also really love that many of the main characters were women, and fully realized women. Miss Justineau is still caring, she's still feminine and empathetic. She still gets to be herself without needing to take on only masculine traits to survive, which is typically something that we see a lot in like dystopian or horror or zombie movies. It's just these women aren't allowed to be women that have those kind of feelings. And just her care for Melanie and the other students in her class, even though she knows what they are, is still really fantastic to see. But on the other hand, Dr. Caldwell was an interesting character as well, as she studies the zombies with no thought to ethical standards. She is going to find a cure. Does not matter the death toll it takes, even if they are children. To her, the ends justify the means 100%, and she is going to redeem herself and find a way out of this catastrophe that we've found ourselves in. Another thing that I really loved about the book is the pacing is really great, and it slowly expands your view so that you understand what's going on. Again, the back cover copy doesn't give much away, and my husband got me this book for a birthday many years ago. He got it because I loved season 1 of Stranger Things so much, and I honestly went into this expecting it to be like Telepathic Kids or something like that. No idea that it was going to be the zombie twist. So that was very well done. And again, the reveal of it is very slow, because at first you're just kind of like, well, what do these kids do? Or like, what's going on with them? And then you start to get all the different pieces. You start to see the adults having these conversations, and you understand that the world we're in is one that we would hope to never find ourselves in. I also think that the science in this is really well thought out, and it works in the world that we're given. It's plausible, and the zombie outbreak isn't just hand-waved away. It's not just like, oh, yep, it happened. Like, we're not going to talk about details. Like, they go into the science of it. You see Dr. Caldwell trying to study it and understand how she can fix it or make it better or just eradicate the virus completely. I also really like the use of the E-blocker substance that they put on their skin, as it's a way to stay safe from the hungries or the zombies that are running around. It was a great way to show that, like, even if something like this were to happen, we would still find ways to try and protect ourselves, to save ourselves, to survive. Though I do have to say that the use of the word hungries instead of zombies was an interesting choice. It felt fine for the children to use it, but I can't imagine all the adults in the world agreeing that this is the right name for them. Like, we would just call them zombies. I do get it. Like, Carrie's probably trying to flip it on its head or just not use the word zombie. But hungries just felt really childish to me. But, like, if that's my biggest, like, complaint about this book, it's a pretty minor one. So Carrie definitely has a way with words and writes really beautifully. So some excerpts that I picked out, page 178. The newer hungries are dressed more nattily, or at least their clothes have had less time to rot, and they still have a broadly human appearance. Paradoxically, that makes them a lot more unpleasant to look at, because the wounds and torn flesh through which they contracted the infection in the first place are clearly visible. On an older hungry, the general bleaching and weathering of the skin, surface, and clothing, along with the overlay of gray mycelia, softens and disguises the wounds, makes something more architectural out of them. And then next one on page 233. The two men move into position at the top of the stairs and get ready to pay out the rope. But at the last moment, Miss Justineau kneels beside Melanie again and holds out her arms. Melanie steps into the embrace, shivers deliciously as Miss Justineau's arms close around her. But she pulls away after no more than a moment. There's just a tiny trace of the human smell, the Miss Justineau smell, underneath the bitterness of the chemicals. Enough to turn the pure pleasure of their proximity into something else entirely. Something that threatens to escalate out of her control. Not safe, she mutters urgently. Not safe. And then page 242. What she thinks is, this could have been me. Why not? A real girl, in a real house, with a mother and father and a brother and a sister and an aunt and an uncle and a nephew and a niece and a cousin and all those other words for the map of people who love each other and stay together. The map called family. Growing up and growing old. Playing, exploring, like Pooh and Piglet and the Famous Five, and then like Heidi and Anne of Green Gables, and then like Pandora, opening the great big box of the world and not being afraid, not even caring whether what's inside is good or bad, because it's both. Everything is always both, but you have to open it to find that out. So again, I just think Carrie's a very strong writer. I think it does make sense given his background. I believe he's in comics and also writes screenplays. So just he has a really great skill set in setting the stage, describing things, and bringing the world, the characters to life. Just all in, I think he's a fabulous writer. I will definitely be keeping an eye out for him and give Carrie's works another read, or, just see what else he has out there, because I think this was a really well-crafted zombie book, especially in an age where the zombies have been beaten to death a little bit. Even like vampires, like it can be very hard to come out with something new that twists the genre on its head, and I think he did a really great job with this. Again, I think it helps having Melanie as one of the main characters, seeing the world through her youth and her innocence and her not even understanding what she is. Like, they don't tell her what she is or who she is. They just are trying to figure out that for themselves while she does too. And so it's just a very interesting take on this kind of world building. So, did you read The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey? If you have, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time on Books and Bubbly.